Hi guys, welcome to today's video. We're doing 2019 paper 2, question 6. It involves some sets and probability and a little bit of algebra to find certain values, so let's get into the video. Okay, so here's our question. We have two independent events, F and S, and they're represented in the Venn diagram below. The probability of F but not S is 1/4. So that's the probability of F minus the probability of the intersection. And the probability of the intersection is 1/5. And we know the probability of S but not F is X. And the probability of F union S complement, or everything that's not in F and S, or in F or S, so some tricky word involved here, that's equal to Y. And we're told these are not equal to 0 either. So they're probably both going to be fractions. And all I've got to do is find the value of X and Y. Okay, so the reason independence is in bold, is because it's actually the very crucial thing to realize about this question in order to find X. Because for any two independent events, the intersection of those two things, so F intersection S in this case, is just equal to the two probabilities multiplied together. So P of F and P of S. So given that we know the value of F intersection S and the value of the probability of F happening, we can manipulate this to isolate the probability of S happening. So we know the probability of F intersection S is 1/5. And here's the first place to be careful, because the probability of F in total, so the probability of the entire circle here, is going to be 1/4 plus 1/5, because obviously 1/5 is also an F. So you could just do that in your calculator, or however you want to do it, but 1/4 plus 1/5 is 9/20, and we're multiplying that by probability of S, which we're trying to find. And just remember as well that the probability of S is not actually equal to X, it's equal to X plus 1/5. So we're going to substitute in X plus 1/5 for the probability of S. So the next step is clearly going to be to divide across by 9/20, or multiply across by 20 and divide across by 9. So now we have X plus 1/5 is equal to 4/9, and by taking away 1/5 on both sides, we're left with X being equal to 11/45. So that's the value of X, and that's half the question done. Next we've got to find Y, again where that's equal to the probability of F union S all complement. So that's basically the probability of everything outside these two circles, so all this area included out in the corners. And this is extremely easy to find, because we can just observe the fact that in any Venn diagram, all the probabilities must add up to 1. So in this case, we know the probability of F happening or S happening, because we figured that out. So we're just going to minus all these things from 1 and get the probability of Y happening. So therefore Y is equal to 1 minus 1/4 plus 1/5 plus 11/45, all inside brackets. So the easiest way to do that for sure is just to plug that into your calculator, and the value you're going to get is 11/36. Which means we're done for part A now, and for doing all that, you're going to get 10 marks. Okay, so for part B now, we're told there are German, Irish and Spanish children in this club, and we know there are 10 Spanish children, and there are twice as many Irish children as there are German children. So we're told they're all waiting to go on the swing. Someone is going to be selected at random to go first, and then they're out of the group, and then another person is going to be selected to go next. And just note especially that they won't rejoin the group, so it's going to change the probabilities as we go. So the probability that the first child selected will be German and the second child selected will not be German is 1/6, and they're asking us to find how many children there are in the club. So quite a lot of wording in that question, and we're going to try and boil that down to numbers or some sort of equation we can form in order to solve this question. Okay, so we're going to let the number of German children in the club be 10, and based on this we're going to work out everything else in terms of n, and then eventually find the value of n, which will then help us find the value of the total number of children in the club. Okay, so if n is the number of German children, we know that 10 are Spanish, and we know that 2n are Irish, because they've told us that up here. So the probability that the first child selected will be German is just the number of German children in the club over the total number of children in the club. And we're going to call this P1, G, so the probability of the first selection. The kid is German, that's just what we're going to call it. So that's n, and to find the total number, we're just going to add n, 2n and 10 together, so that is just going to be 3n plus 10. So we have that probability, and here we have our second probability involved, which is that the second selection, or 2, is not German, so that we're just going to call that G complement. So that is dealing with just this part of the wording up here, and that is just the number of non-German children in the club, which is going to be 3n plus 10, which we've already worked out to be the total, and we're just going to rewrite that on the side, minus the number of German children, which we know is n. So the children that aren't German is equal to 2n plus 10. Simply 3n plus 10 minus n. And we're putting that over the total number of children left. And it's also very important to remember what we highlighted up here, which is that they don't rejoin the group. So once one person goes, that's it. And of course, because we've already selected someone in the probability of the first selection being German, we have to reduce the total number by 1, which leaves us with new total of 3n plus 9. So again, we've got the children that aren't German over the new total after the first selection. So these two things happening in succession, given that each selection is an independent event, which you can assume. So they're multiplied together, they're going to be equal to 1/6. So doing the multiplication, we've got these two fractions multiplied by each other being equal to 1/6. And now we can just simplify this because everything is in terms of n. So the first thing we're going to do is just bring our 6 across by multiplying across by 6 and bring what's on the bottom over here across onto the right hand side. The next thing is just going to be to begin multiplying in our brackets. So we have 3n times 3n plus 9 plus 10 times 3n plus 9. And this side over here has remained pretty much the same. And when we finally expand everything out, what we've got is 12n squared plus 60n is equal to 9n squared plus 27n plus 30n plus 90. So doing this step by step, bringing everything over to the left hand side, we have 12n squared minus 9n squared, which is of course 3n squared. We've got 60n minus 27n minus 30n, so 60n minus 57n, which leaves us with a plus 3n on the left. And the last thing to bring across is just a 90, so we're going to have minus 90. And as we've brought everything across, what we're left with on the right is just going to be equal to 0. And this is looking pretty promising, a nice quadratic forming, which we can probably factorize. The first thing we're going to do though is just divide by 3 to make it easier. So now we've just got a standard factorization on our hands. So we're looking for factors of minus 30, which add up to 1, which is the coefficient of n here. So just think factors of 30, which only differ by 1, and of course you're left with 5 and 6. So because we have plus n, we're going to have plus 6 and minus 5, which gives us n plus 6 and n minus 5 as our factors, meaning that n is equal to minus 6 and n is equal to minus 5 are the roots here. And because we defined n to be the number of German children, of course we can't have a negative number of German children. It doesn't make sense in any universe, so we're just going to disregard that, which means that our answer is n equal to 5. Again, because n is equal to minus 6 is just impossible. And the last thing to do, because we are asked to find the total number of children in the club here rather than just the number of German children, so we're just going to have to add n, the number of German children, plus 2n, the number of Irish children, plus 10, the number of Spanish children, which is 5 plus 10 plus 10, meaning our total is equal to 25. And that is it for part B. So nothing too difficult towards the end, just a different quadratic to deal with. Really the only tricky part was in the beginning trying to form equations out of the words, but besides that, a pretty nice question. And for doing part B and getting it all out, you're going to get 15 marks. And that is it for this question. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, there's going to be other similar videos in the description, as well as some other helpful resources. And I'll see you next time.